Back with you. This is San Diego Sports Leader, the Mighty 1090. I am Darren Smith. As we roll into hour number 2, let us say hello to Brian Dutcher. He is the AHC, the HCIW. San Diego State last night, 79-55 over IPFW. The Mastodons are sent packing following the opening round of the NIT. Dutch, good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you, Darren. Good to be back.
Well, appreciate that. So much to get to. Let me just start with this. We always appreciate your honesty. You're a very candid guy when you come on the air and you do these interviews with us. What did you know about IPFW on Saturday night?
Knew nothing about them. I figured when they announced we were playing them, I figured they had won their league, and they did. They tied with South Dakota State for the regular season league title. That's how they got into the NIT, and I watched tape on them, and, when I watched tape, I figured it was a good matchup for us. They play hard, but they don't do anything that's ultra disruptive. They don't press. They don't overplay stuff. They don't slow the game down. They just play. And so that was a good thing for us to see going into the game. I felt when they just played a normal game that we would have a chance to, being at home in front of our home crowd, have a chance to win.
Did you know what IPFW stood for?
Indiana Purdue four-way, and I knew that instantly.
You did. You knew that on Saturday. I would have asked you that on Saturday night. You would have said this is what it stands for.
Absolutely. That's from my Midwest days.
You knew who their coach was?
No.
Okay. All right, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful towards them because there's a chance a lot of their people didn't know much about you guys either. But it was somewhat of an anonymous name, at least I think, for most people. Even if you follow college basketball regularly, I think they were somewhat of an anonymous opponent. How much work? I mean, did you put in a game plan against them, or did you just do your thing?
Darren, with this day and age, there's so much film available instantly. We go to the website, we pull up games, we pull up their tournament games, and so we're watching them immediately. Then we go to the press and their notes, and it wasn't easy to get our kids totally engaged. They were still a little disappointed, but Coach Fisher does such a masterful job of getting them over the moment and not making the NCAAs and getting them ready for the next game. And we knew they had their conference MVP. We knew they had their leading rebounder in their conference. So we knew they had pieces, and we could get our kids ready to play.
All right. To that point, what was the sense you had from your kids as they were getting set to take the court last night at 7 o'clock? Everybody can say that they want to win. Everybody can say that they're engaged by the NIT tournament. It's another thing to go out there on the court and to do it, because we've seen teams that have just lacked the effort when they have played these games in this tournament because they had their sights set on something greater. So what was the sense you had? Did you really feel like, all right, you know what, 79-55, if I would have said that to you before the game, Dutch, you think, yeah, okay, that's the mood of the team right now?
I think so, Darren. We talked about the same thing you just brought up, that there are teams that go to this tournament and just tank, and they act like they don't want to be there, and that's not what our program's about. We're happy to be playing basketball, to play another game in our arena, and to continue to show the nation that they missed out on a team by not having us in the NCAA tournament.
What did you expect crowd-wise last night? 8,324, 67% capacity.
I would have guessed around 6,000.
Okay,
but
so
8,000 was a really a nice crowd.
Yeah, and that was a crowd that was into it. I was there.
You were there?
I was there.
Well, why didn't you stop and say hello?
Listen, you guys, that's your work environment. That's your work environment. But I was into it, and I really thought that the crowd that was there, which is not 12,414, right? I mean, the crowd was the people who were there were into the game last night.
Oh, they brought great energy. I mean, when they were doing the introductions and the team came on the floor and the ovation we got, I think they were showing their appreciation for the work we put into the year. They weren't, we're at an NIT game. This is not where we want to be. They wanted to show the team that they're supporting their aspects, and we could feel that. And that helped with the excitement our kids felt when they went on the floor, that the community was supporting them, and everybody was disappointed. No going more than us, but they showed their appreciation for the season we had, I thought.
Brian Dutcher joining us on San Diego Sports Leader, the Mighty 1090. We had senior forward Winston Shepard on the show earlier this week. He's an interesting guy, Dutch, as I know you know. And he said, listen, I'm a senior on this team. I know that this team is probably going to follow my lead here. I'm a senior leader. I've been tabbed by the coaching staff to set the example in the locker room, on the court, on the bench, etc. And he went out there last night, had the first triple-double in San Diego State basketball history. So I guess he wasn't just blowing smoke the other day, that he fully intended to take the court and lead this team, and he did that last night.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Winston did a great job. And like I said, people that didn't know that were at the game is like, why is Winston still in there? People were trying to figure it out. I talked to a guy today, and it seemed like half the crowd kind of understood he was going for a triple-double and half didn't.
Right.
And so Coach Fisher says he never's one to play guys for personal goals or stats, but he thought Winston had deserved that opportunity. He played so well, so he left him in the last couple minutes to try to get 2 more rebounds. And I'm not sure if Winston missed his own shot intentionally or not. Sometimes it's hard to tell. But he got the last 2 rebounds and ended up with the first triple-double in San Diego State history.
Missed his own shot intentionally, huh?
I don't know if he did or not. Sometimes it's hard to tell, Darren. He misses a lot of inside shots. So
He does.
I couldn't really tell if he missed one intentionally or not and try to get his own rebound.
Well, he was 4 for 10 last night, so now you're planting a seed here. I'm going to have to go back and examine the game film.
You won't be able to figure it out. I can't figure it out.
Have you ever coached a player who had a triple-double? I was thinking about this last night while I was listening to the end of the game. Yes, that's an admission that I left early. I was thinking about it while I was driving home. I wonder if you guys have ever coached one before. I mean, I would guess that Jalen might have had one.
You know what? I really don't know. I don't think so. That's a really hard one to get, especially I think the assist as much as anything. And not being a point guard, being a forward. Winston had 10 assists from the forward position. And like I said, we put him in that position a lot. We put him where he's the trigger in the play. Whether we throw it into the low post, we're hoping to invite a double team where he finds somebody, or we hit him at the elbow, at the foul line and work cutters because he's such a good passer. So to do it from his position is a real credit to him and the way he plays the game.
Plus, I'm sure it never gets old to be a coach on this staff, to be the AHCHCIW and do something again, or at least be there again while something happens for the very first time in San Diego State history.
Yeah, it was really neat. I was happy for Winston and happy for the team for being great around him and really giving a real ovation when he came in the locker room, and heartfelt. They were all wanted him to get it. They found ways to help him get it.
All right, Brian Dutcher's here, San Diego sports leader. It's the Mighty 1090. One player who looks to me, Dutch, I've watched him now for a full season plus into the postseason, and I can't quite figure out what Zylan Cheatham's game is. Maybe you can help me out on that. Is he a shooter? Is he a slasher? Is he a back-to-the-basket kind of guy? What exactly is he? Because sometimes, I don't know, it seems like it's moving really quickly for him out there at times, and I can't quite put my finger on what exactly I think he's going to turn into as he develops in this game.
He's like a lot of the players we bring in. He's got growth to do, and I think he had a tough start to the game yesterday. It seemed like he couldn't hold on to the ball. He had some turnovers, and I think he's starting to press a little bit. When things don't go right sometimes, you press a little harder, and that's not the thing to do. It's to relax a little bit and let it go a little slower. So I thought Zylan pressed too hard at the start of the game, and then the second half, he ended up getting a little rhythm to himself. But, Zylan's a great athlete. He's strong. He finishes around the basket. He's pretty good with the bounce. It seems like he dropped a few rebounds that he normally gets, so he's a solid rebounder. He's a great athlete. So I think, what we try to do, we try to make them all rounded players to be able to do a little bit of everything. So he works hard. He's in the gym all the time, and I think he'll improve his shooting as he goes on. He's a very good free throw shooter, but he's got to work on his jump shot a little bit and then continue just to relax and take care of the ball and not force so many things. And that just comes with maturity and age.
Is he tired? I don't know that he's ever played this many basketball games.
I don't think he's tired. I just think, it's like anything. I think it's frustration, Darren. I think sometimes when things don't go right, he seems to get frustrated. And, we always preach, move on to the next play. Don't be dwelling on the play you just made, whether it's good or bad, because there's another play that's happening right now. And so I think Zylan has done a good job continuing to manage his frustration where he might drop a ball he thinks he should have had and stuff like that, and moving on to the next play. And if he continues to do that, he'll find he'll have greater success on the floor.
Hey, Dutch, you play Washington coming up on Monday. This is what I know about Washington. They scored over 100 I have them at over 100 3 times this season, 8 more times over 90. This is a team that you saw a year ago. You lost 49-36 at Washington. They are now third, according to my research, in scoring in the NCAA, averaging just a tick less than 85 points per game. I don't know what happened between last year and this year when you played them, but what stands out to you about UW?
They've got some really good young talent to go with a veteran guard, and they scored 105 last night against Long Beach. And Long Beach, I was watching some of that in the first half, and they were up 10, 12, 14 points. But that kind of lead against a team that scores 100 is not great enough sometimes. So we'll have to find a way to slow them down. And obviously, they did a great job guarding us last year. We're going to have to look at that tape, even though we're a different team, and figure out ways where we're not so inept offensively against them this time.
Yeah, and they sound like a different team as well. I mean, if you're averaging 85 a game and you score 49 last year, I'm guessing they got a bunch of freshmen who came through the door and started lighting it up.
Oh, they've got as fine a freshmen as there are in the country, and
wow.
They've struggled on the road because they are young, but haven't been through a full year. Those kids aren't freshmen anymore, so I'd anticipate they're going to come in here, and it's going to be a charged atmosphere, even though it's an 8:30 game. And people will say, well, it's not the NCAA. That doesn't matter. This is Washington, San Diego State. This is us against another Pac-12 team in our gym, and it's going to be electric, and we hope the fans will get out there and support us even greater than they did against the Mastodons yesterday.
The Dons of
They're not mammoths. They're Mastodons, Darren. There's a difference.
Okay. What is the difference?
I don't know.
Well, you brought it up, so I
asked my wife that the other day. What is the actual difference between a mastodon and a mammoth? And I don't know. I'm sure a caller will call in and let you know.
Okay, yeah. By the way, if somebody wants to do that, we would appreciate the information, and we'll get it back to Coach Dutcher there. Can I just ask one quick thing on the way out? Because I've somewhat taken on a reputation here as a defender of the NIT before it was even announced that you guys were going there. And it's because I grew up where the finals were. My alma mater has experience there, so I'm a bit of a defender. I'm not suggesting that anybody starts their college basketball season wanting to go to the NIT. We all understand that the NCAA tournament is what you guys set your sights on. That being said, you've been on a staff that has won this tournament before, and I just wonder how important it is and what people actually think about it here. Because I know that it's easy for fans to say, well, it's not in tournament, and you're number 69 if you win it and all that sort of stuff. That's just not accurate. It's just like cheap shotting it. But you're in the business, and you've won this tournament before, in addition to championships. And I just wonder what you think of the NIT.
I think it's a heck of a competitive tournament, and everybody dreams about playing in Madison Square Garden. And so we're playing toward that goal. And just because you're in the NIT doesn't mean you're not one of the top 68 teams. Some of these smaller conferences that get automatic bids, there might be 30 or 40 really good teams in the NCAA, but trust me, there are teams in the NIT that would do damage in the NCAA if ever given the opportunity. And we're grateful to be playing in it right now, and it's the most important tournament because it's the tournament we're in.
We'll leave it at that. Dutch, we'll see you on Monday night. Thank you for the time.
Thanks, Aaron.